Welcome to Before the Score, episode number 40. We're over the hill. It's official. We're having the big party. Let's start off this episode with some Chris Paul news. He's a member of the Phoenix Suns. Let's start it off with a question because we actually got a question about Chris Paul. This one comes from Kevin Green. Last week he asked about Sam Darnold. This week he's asking about Chris Paul. He wants to know if the addition of Chris Paul takes the Suns to the playoffs and how far. Dan, start us off with that one.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you saw, right as the bubble started to come forward and they had those set of games where the Suns were still not out, but, they had a very big hill to climb and eventually got to that play-in game where they didn't win. But the Suns, they went undefeated in that stretch. They have been a great team. Devin Booker has been becoming a superstar now. So then you get a guy like Chris Paul, who we were talking about I think last week with Chris Paul and the Thunder and how he's elevated that Thunder team to, with not a great roster, a very young roster, he's put them in, a good spot of where that franchise has been without their superstar in Russell Westbrook. So now you get a guy like Chris Paul into the Suns organization, again, a young team. You have a lot of young draft picks on that team, and he's a veteran presence. I think they can make a good run. They could be a 7 seed, I'd say, 7-6 seed. I don't see them exceeding that in any because the West is just out of control how hard it is. But Chris Paul is a great addition. I did like the package, though. Steve, you could go on this point. The package the Thunder got for that trade. What do you think about that?
The Thunder, Sam Presti, that man, he just turns everything into gold. He has, I believe, 16 first-round picks up until 2026. That's a whole nother NBA team right there. It's an expansion NBA roster. Of course, they won't use all 16 of those picks. They'll be traded. They'll figure out something to turn those into viable players. I have a lot of confidence in Sam Presti to figure it out, but he looks like he put off a heist, trading Russell Westbrook for Chris Paul and then turning Chris Paul into viable players like Kelly Oubre, Ricky Rubio, and getting these first-round picks. Thunder, they could still sneak in as an 8 seed. I still see this team as a pretty good team, especially with Gilgeous-Alexander on that team. But on the other side, I believe this was a great trade for the Suns. The Suns needed to pair a superstar with Devin Booker, and no free agent wants to go to Phoenix. It hasn't been a viable destination for a free agent in a long time. They tried to get Blake Griffin a couple of years ago. Blake Griffin would rather go to Detroit than Phoenix.
Yeah.
So Phoenix, they got their guy in Chris Paul, who showed that he can take a young team to the playoffs, and now he goes to a team that has even more talent, one of the most talented scorers in the entire NBA. And they could really build something special. I could see them, to answer the how far, I could see them at least getting the second round, maybe the conference finals if they can get some lucky matchups or something. I don't know if they're going to beat the Clippers. I don't know if they're going to beat the Lakers. But you never know in the NBA. You saw the Heat go on this crazy run. And I think that the Suns have better scoring than that, especially with who's their center? I'm drawing a blank. DeAndre Ayton down there, because that guy's a beast too. So Ayton, Paul, Booker, that's a hell of a big three right there. They can fill in with some the gaps with some really good core players. I think they can build something special in Phoenix.
And like you just said, they have 16 draft picks. Per se, a quarter of those actually work out to viable NBA players. That's 4 NBA players right there. That's almost half a team that's playing. So they have so much capital. And they did get that Chris Paul trade off the books. They lost $15 million in Dennis Schroeder going to the Lakers. So they're, you could say they're rebuilding, but like you said, like Kelly Oubre is a very good young NBA player that could be very good for them down the road. And then you're getting a veteran presence like Ricky Rubio. So the Thunder are still going to be a very competitive team while they're rebuilding with all these picks. In a few years, we could see the Thunder going some places.
So while we're on the topic of these former Thunder players, we got another question here from Matt Pistonit. And he says, where will Westbrook go? Will he go to a contender? Pablo, you were outspoken on Russell Westbrook last week, calling him not a team player, basically injecting him with the Odell Beckham-itis. So tell me, which team is going to get Russell Westbrook? Because it doesn't look like the Rockets are keeping him.
Well, number one, Russell Westbrook is somebody I have always admired from afar. I love, booting up the old 2K games, and I love playing with that Thunder team with Durant and Westbrook and with Harden, who we will talk about later on in the show. That team was just so fun to play with, and I love how explosive Russell Westbrook was. Obviously, he's gotten a little bit older. He's not as fast as he used to be. But I don't think that is somebody who should play along with the New York Knicks. I don't think he should be around a team that's young and rebuilding and trying to, find himself. I don't think that's the right player. I think he's a guy that he's good now. He should go to a win now team. And I really don't know where he's going to play next season. And as a Knicks fan, I know as a Knicks fan, especially you, Steve, you look at anything, any type of player to bring excitement, to bring something of value, to bring just some excitement to the Knicks. But this is not the guy. This is not the time and the place. But he will find a home. And I don't see him playing with the Rockets this year.
From a Knicks perspective, they kind of need someone like a Russell Westbrook. Not that he's going to take him over the hump or anything and get him into an actual contender, but just to give them a little bit more recognition and be that first domino to fall, so you can attract other players and attract other moves they can make in the future.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, the Knicks have all that cap space that they could easily afford a guy like Russell Westbrook. But I find this whole situation very peculiar in the fact that you have these James Harden trade talks of going to Brooklyn, and you have a different superstar on the same team also in trade rumors. What are the Rockets doing here? You're a few players away from being a top team in the NBA. You just got to get through the Lakers and probably the Clippers, Warriors. And then after that, you're going to probably win the NBA championship because the East is, unless the Nets actually have everything go right for them. But other than the point of that, with James Harden and Russell Westbrook, there's no reason you should be trading these guys. Obviously, now Harden looks like he wants to move out, which maybe you can't blame him because the Rockets haven't gone anywhere. But there are so many different options that the Rockets could go in this situation where you get like a few other players, they're going to be very competitive. I just don't understand why the Rockets are doing this. I don't make any sense of it.
It is surprising to see the Rockets. After winning the first game against the Lakers last year, everything looked great, and then they kind of blew everything up. And it looks like they're in the process of just completely tearing down that team as they believe they're not going to win an NBA championship that way. But on the topic of Russell Westbrook, I'll answer Matt's question here. I know we talked a lot about Westbrook to the Knicks, and as a Knicks fan and a Russell Westbrook fan, I would love to see it. I love the Brody. I think he would bring an energy to New York that they haven't had since even before Carmelo Anthony. But he's not going to be a Knick. I don't think Leon Rose makes that deal. I think the contract is too strapping for them. And I do think when Michael Jordan says go get somebody, the general manager of the Charlotte Hornets is going to get him. I don't think you cross Michael Jordan. You don't cross the GOAT. So I think the Brody is going to go to Charlotte. I think they're going to trade for him. Do I think the Brody wants to go to Charlotte? No, I don't think anybody wants to go to Charlotte. But in the NBA, when you're not a viable free agent destination, like the Suns just did with Chris Paul, you got to trade for your superstars. It's exactly what the Thunder did for Paul George as well. So if the Hornets are ever going to get over the hump and make it to the playoffs, make it to the second round, win a playoff series, it's going to happen with trading for a superstar. And they can get Russell Westbrook relatively cheap. They have an extra first-round pick, and they have a lot of cap space, especially if they let go of Holiday. So I really think that Russell Westbrook, Hornets, it's set in stone. I think it's going to happen. And it'll be cool to see if Westbrook can handle that young team who has potential in a market that he's not used to, like Chris Paul just did with the Oklahoma City Thunder this year. It's just ironic that those former teammates together, it's just weird to see that these two guys are going to be connected at the hip like that, especially with the Thunder. Weird to think of all that together. But let's talk about another former Oklahoma City, former Rocket, James Harden. Dan, you touched on it a little bit. The Nets are looking to get James Harden, Kyrie, KD, James Harden. Man, tell me, is that going to happen? Is this true? Are my Knicks going to really have to watch that happen across town?
I think that there's a very real possibility of it happening. I definitely think those trade talks are going through. What surprises me is from the reports, obviously, I don't know if what report is true or not, but it seems like Kyrie Irving's the guy that doesn't want this move to happen. And, can you blame him? So you have Kevin Durant that's saying, yeah, I would love James Harden. And you can't blame him for saying, yeah, James, come to our team. We'll be a lot better of a team. You're getting a top 5 player in the NBA. But is that like the same thing Kevin Durant did with the Warriors? Is you getting a James Harden, a top 5 player? is there any glory in that if you were to win a championship with those three guys? I think Kyrie sees that side of the argument where he says, hey, I got my guy in Kevin Durant, and I think we could go win this. And I respect that, his mentality, even though his mentality has been questioned these past couple of years. But I think these talks are very real, and I think James would like that move because, look, like I said before, the Rockets have not done anything, gotten to that that NBA Finals round that they've so coveted these past few years with the rosters they've had. James Harden goes to the East, LeBron winning the West, all these guys moving East. I could see it. I could honestly see it.
Now, you touched upon something that's very important. The Rockets, they have had very stacked rosters, especially over these last few seasons, being led by James Harden. But like you said, the West is always very competitive. There's always been teams like, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Warriors, the Thunder. It's very tough to win out in that conference. So I do think by building a super team now, am I a big fan of the super team? No. But it's the way that the NBA has sort of been going for the better part of over 10 years now. So I do think a super team of Westbrook, Durant, Kyrie Irving is something that personally I don't see any East team, any team in the East even comparing on paper. That team is just ridiculous. And, being in a big market like Brooklyn, a team that you saw last offseason, they were not afraid to make moves. This is a team that if they get James Harden, they're going to be very dangerous, especially being in the East.
It'd be interesting to see the Nets get James Harden, but I don't know if the marriage is as perfect as people are making it out to be. You have three guys who need the ball in their hands, three of the greatest ISO scorers in the NBA. That's a lot of elements in there. You need some glue guys in there. I don't know. I really don't know if that'll work. It'll be tough to see, but on your point about super teams in the NBA, I want to liken this kind of to NASCAR, because this is kind of what I've been seeing in the NBA. NASCAR, everybody you see at Daytona, at the restrictor plate tracks, everybody likes to get together, push each other to the front. That's the way it's been for a long time. And a couple years back, NASCAR went to these tandem drafts where two cars could hook up and go straight to the front. And that's kind of what we saw in the NBA last year. We saw two stars go to like very different teams. You saw Harden and Westbrook, Kyrie and KD, LeBron and AD, Kawhi and Paul George. So instead of the super teams, it's kind of been these superstar tandems and then the rest of the team. I think that might be very short-lived in the NBA. I think that we're just kind of in a period where we're waiting for the next super team. You saw LeBron and AD even try to get Kawhi on the Lakers, which would have been the big three. And I do think that eventually we're going to get another one of those big threes. And the Nets, that would be a hell of a try right there. I think you do the trade if you're the Nets. You got to at least try to get a guy like James Harden, but I just don't know if it'll work as well as they really think it's going to.
Yeah, the main problem would be between Kyrie and James. Obviously, they're both, 2 point guards. You looked at, Kevin Durant on the Warriors, and everyone said, is that going to work out? And it worked out beautifully. Kevin Durant has not the biggest ego where he could, go off the ball more and shoot more like he was with the Warriors. And, that worked out so well. But the problem is with Kyrie, is Kyrie giving up the ball as much? In the LeBron's tenure, LeBron gave it a lot to Kyrie. He fed him a lot, and you saw in those especially games where it counted in the 2015 or 2016 NBA Finals where Kyrie's dropping 40. You add a guy like James Harden to the mix. I don't know if that's going to work very well, but like you said, the Nets definitely have to try to pursue it. It's a top 5 player in the NBA. Why wouldn't they?
Yep, a lot of NBA talk today. NBA draft tomorrow. Real quick, is LaMelo Ball, LeVar Ball's son, he's not in the news as much, is LaMelo Ball going number 1 tomorrow?
No, he's not. I really think Anthony Edwards is going to get drafted first. However, I wouldn't be shocked if LaMelo does go 1. I think he's going to go 2, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't see LaMelo going 1, but Anthony Edwards, that's a pretty damn good number 1 pick. There's 3 really good prospects in this draft in Edwards, Wiseman, and Ball. One of them falls to the Knicks, I'll be over the moon. But at the 8th pick, my prediction for the Knicks' 8th pick, I don't know if it'll fall to us, but I'm going to predict it because I'm hoping it happens. Give me the player of the year last year. Give me Dayton's Obi Toppin. Please let me get Obi Toppin in this draft. That's what I want for the Knicks, baby.
I don't know if Obi's going to make it to you. I mean, I love the fit of where I don't know if you're going to like this because this guy might get drafted, maybe not even a lottery pick. But Cole Anthony, my boy from UNC, I think he'd be a great fit on the Knicks.
I do like Cole Anthony, but man, at 8, it just before the season started, I would have said, great, Cole Anthony's falling to us at 8, but the man just fell on these draft boards, and I would be elated if we could get him at 28. I believe that's our second pick, but I just can't see him. I think he's going to go before then and after 8, so it's just not the right spot.
They should definitely try to trade up at that end of the lottery picks because that's probably where Cole's going to go. But like I was saying before, the Warriors have the second pick, correct?
Yeah, second pick.
So they haven't traded that pick yet. Is James Wiseman the guy? Because obviously that would fit their team needs very much and make them a very good contender. Or do you trade that pick and get an automatic guy that is going to, put up buckets and get your team back to that championship? It's going to be interesting to see what they do from now that we're recording to the time. Because I have no idea what's going to happen with the Warriors.
This is the most unpredictable draft I remember in a long time. I just don't know what bigs are there out on the trade market that the Warriors will be looking to trade for instead of drafting a guy like Wiseman or even a scorer like LaMelo Ball.
Yeah.
I can see maybe Nikola Vucevic from the Magic, but even then, I don't even know if the Magic want to give up on that guy because he's been there forever and he seems like he's happy there. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting draft tomorrow. A lot of moves are going to be made from now until tomorrow night. And also, 2 guys I really love that I would like the Knicks to get. But of course, they had to trade back from their 8th pick to get them. I love Tyrese Maxey from Kentucky. Balled out this year. I love his attitude. And Kira Lewis from Alabama. Those are my 2 picks. Those are the guys I want. Can't see us picking them at 8. But if we trade back, I think that we can really get them. I think the Knicks at 8, it's just a bad spot in this draft. There's a couple really good players, and after the first 6 or 7, it gets kind of everybody's in the middle there. So,
well, you didn't get lucky with that draft lottery. You got lucky with your Rangers draft lottery. So I guess you're okay with
1 for 2 is not bad, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's move on here. Let's talk some baseball. Pablo, I know you'll be happy about that. Before we get into the Francisco Lindor trade, let's talk about the big news in baseball today, and that is the curse breaker himself, Theo Epstein, taking the year off. Doesn't stop the rumors. Mets, Phillies, targeted destinations maybe. Theo Epstein has been one of my favorite people in baseball since he was with the Red Sox. I would love this guy on the Mets. Tell me, Andrew, is there any chance that Steve Cohen can throw some money on him?
See, I think that there's a possibility that he could lure him to New York. From what I've read, the little bit I've read since his release is that he wasn't initially thinking of taking a job in 2021. He wanted to wait a year after leaving the Cubs, take that year off, refresh, and then find a new spot. But I mean, the new owner and Steve Cohen, the deep pockets of Steve Cohen, the potential that he has to work with this Mets team is similar to what he got with the Cubs when the Cubs had a loaded farm system, which the Mets don't have, but the Mets have a lot of money to spend and a lot of moves to be made. So he had a lot of room to build a team in Chicago. He had a lot of room to build a team in Boston. So I think the Mets, out of any other team looking for front office help, is the perfect situation for him. But it's whether or not he would want to move. He would want to go to the Mets.
I think that Theo Epstein, it would just be fun for him to go be the Mets general manager. Him and Sandy Alderson, I think they could work beautifully together. Theo Epstein, just having him in the building will really change the aura of the Mets. That guy broke the curse for the Red Sox, broke the even longer curse for the Cubs. I know the Mets don't really have a curse per se, but the Wilpons are gone. That's got to count for some kind of curse break. And then if you get Theo Epstein in there, just get smart people in the baseball office. I love the names the Mets are interviewing, but there is no bigger fish that could get than Theo Epstein.
Yeah, some of the names you were mentioning, I was just looking at the reports. You have Bobby Heck from the Rays, Mike Chernoff, I think his name is, from the Indians, which are 2 really real possibilities that I think the Mets would be more interested in than going with the Theo Epstein route, only because Theo Epstein, it looks like he wants to take the year off from baseball, and how could you blame him? It's been 30 straight years he's been walking into an MLB stadium for, so we'll see what happens with Theo Epstein. I'm going to assume it's going to be next year, but those 2 guys I just listed, I think those are the real possibilities for the New York Mets.
Well, number one, not every single person who becomes available automatically has to be linked to the New York Mets. I don't think I have to say it, but that's just common sense. Just because Theo Epstein is no longer, with the Chicago Cubs doesn't mean, the Mets or even the Phillies are looking at him. That's number one. Number two, I think being a general manager is in the rearview mirror for a guy like Theo Epstein. This guy wants to move up. He wants to pursue being a partial owner of a team. He wants to look into things like that. Potentially buying a team is something that's very huge. And it's not something you could do by yourself. It's not something you could do while being a general manager. It's something you need to, take some time off, talk to some investors to help you out so you can go and look at potentially buying a team or getting into buying any sort of team. So I don't think he is going to be a general manager anymore. I think that is behind him. He broke the curse, obviously, like you said, for two historic franchises. But look, Theo Epstein, he's one of the greatest baseball men ever. And he's going to find the job somewhere. His time in Major League Baseball is not over.
One more thing on Theo Epstein before I let someone else speak a little bit more on this. I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember him speaking in the past about he doesn't want to stay in one spot for too long. That's why he broke the curse in Boston, and then he moved on to another challenge. He broke the curse in Chicago, and he moves on to another challenge. And he's only 46 years old, so I don't think he really feels pressure to get into an ownership spot. I think he still wants to be able to be in the baseball operations of a team and being on the front lines of building a team. So I think he would welcome another challenge like that. Obviously, no one knows for sure. It's hard to predict front office moves. But, I mean, I see the fit there. So I think this is something that he would be open to.
I think that baseball people in general, after the Steve Cohen press conference, are kind of chomping at the bit to kind of work with this guy, especially with Sandy Alderson, who's been a baseball lifer, and he's so much experience, even working for the MLB in general. I think that if you can get a good workplace and you're smart, you have smart people to work with, I think that this would be a great opportunity for Epstein, especially if he still wants to work on the front lines. And he wouldn't be a general manager. He would not, that title is beneath him now. He would be up there with Sandy, right beneath Sandy. And I really think that it would be kind of more of an Andrew Friedman Dodgers role than general manager like Brody Van Wagenen. So he's not going down to a general manager. That's not going to happen. But just some capacity working in the front office, I think that would be more viable for the Mets. Pablo wants to see him own a team with A-Rod and J-Lo, but I think he's got some couple years until that happens. Dan, you brought up the Indians general manager. Let's talk about the Indians in general. Let's talk about Francisco Lindor because his name is the hottest name on the trade market right now. MLB Network posted some pretty interesting trade ideas for Francisco Lindor. Somebody tell me, do you really think – well, let's see. Dan, you can bring up the Mets one. Pablo, you can bring up the Yankees one. I know you got it on hand. Pablo, tell me, is that really a viable trade for the New York Yankees?
Well, number one, let me just bring up the trade here. Let me just bring this up. Look, for the New York Yankees, right, personally, I don't think that going after a guy like Francisco Lindor is the thing that they absolutely need to be doing right now. And obviously, we're going to save that for later on in the offseason. We have more videos, more content to come. DJ LeMahieu has to be your number one priority. Along with DJ LeMahieu, you have to also look at getting some pitching. The Yankees do not have any big name pitcher. They do not have any pitcher of there's no pitcher you can honestly trust behind Garrett Cole. Their bullpen, there's holes in the bullpen. You don't know what the Yankees are doing with Gary Sanchez. So right now, I don't think Lindor is, I don't think right now he's the guy that they should be absolutely be looking at unless they can't bring back a DJ LeMahieu. Now, this offer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to cut you. No, go ahead. I'll rebuttal that.
Okay. Now, this trade offer or this trade proposal by MLB Network, it shows Lindor coming to the Yankees for a Clint Frazier, for a Miguel Andujar, and two pitching prospects, Albert Abreu and Luis Gil. Now, personally, I don't think that this trade is too far off. And honestly, as a Yankee fan, I would only do this trade if that meant that they were going to sign him long term. Now, when you do a trade, you don't absolutely know that you're going to be able to sign a player. So that's something that's always going to be a risk. But look, if they did that trade and they're like, you know what, we're going to sign him long term in the following offseason, I'd be all for this. I personally think that if this were a regular season, if Francisco Lindor had more years in his contract, he would be demanding prospect after prospect, major league arms, major league bats. But to be able to get a player of the caliber of Francisco Lindor, and it only costs you Miguel Andujar, who was terrible this year, coming off a injury-plagued season, Clint Frazier, who showed some sort of life, and two pitching prospects who really haven't made any sort of impact at the major league level, I would absolutely 100% make that deal.
Now, what I was going to say is, you said that it's not a fit because the Yankees need pitching, but I do think this is the one of the 2 or 3 positions in the Yankees that would be a really good fit, because you can move Gleyber Torres to second base. You can get the natural, one of the best fielding shortstops in baseball. And it's an immediate help to a defense that wasn't great last year. The Yankees did not have a great defense last year. So if you want pitching help, another thing that helps the pitching is great defense. So getting a vacuum at shortstop would be just as beneficial as a second starter. So you still need to build the pitching if you're the Yankees. But getting a guy like Francisco Lindor would do wonders for that lineup, especially because there's such a right-handed dominated lineup. So a switch hitter too to go in with that defense, that's just a perfect fit in that Yankee lineup. I don't think they will do it, which is what the problem with the Yankees is. I think they're not willing to give him that long-term contract that if you're trading for Francisco Lindor, you're going to want to give him that contract. I don't think the Yankees with people like Aaron Judge and Gleyber Torres that they pay in the future, I don't think after paying Garrett Cole $300 million that they're going to be willing to do that. So I think the fit's there, but I don't think the want is there for the Yankees.
And real quick, I honestly agree with Pablo saying DJ LeMahieu should be your first priority here. This guy, I mean, you look at last season, my God, sometimes he was the only guy hitting on the team, and he really carried the Yankees very far. He is easily their best player last year. They need to re-sign a guy like that because, my God, if you take him out of the lineup and Lindor slumps a little bit, what's going to happen with the Yankees? You could count on DJ LeMahieu, as they have these last 2 years. You try to re-sign him for a couple more years, and then you pay your big-name guys like Judge, like Gleyber in the future, where Lindor isn't on the books for as long. But Lindor, great player, but I think the Yankees should be looking at DJ LeMahieu more.
Now, I don't think that this trade offer would get it done for the Yankees. But if it did, they would be stupid not to take it. You look at this is what pisses me off about this trade offer, because MLB Network, I don't know what they got against the Mets, but Dan, you'll read the trade offer in a bit. And the stuff we have to give up potentially for Lindor does not mirror what the Yankees are giving up in this trade. They're giving up their 4th outfielder here. They're giving up Miguel Andujar, who didn't even play for them last year, and who doesn't even have a spot really on this team anymore. And then 2 pitching prospects who won't make a difference if they're on the Yankees or not. So I just really don't understand how this would get the trade done, apparently, for the Yankees. But if I'm the Yankees and that's all it takes, you do that. I'd do that trade in a second.
If that's all it takes and then you don't re-sign him, what are you doing? And I understand what you're saying about bringing in Lindor. I understand he's the best shortstop in baseball. He's a switch hitter. He's the perfect shortstop. He's one of the best players in the entire league. But I think if you bring in Lindor, I don't care how good he is, if you let DJ LeMahieu walk, you cannot replace him. Your team gets automatically worse. I don't care who you replace him with. You cannot replace a guy like DJ LeMahieu. He's your leadoff hitter. Who else is going to replace him in the leadoff hole? Who else is going to hit with runners in score position? Who else is going to play 150-plus games? It doesn't matter at third, at second, at first, above average defense. This guy, he runs a team. He does everything for this team. He does everything. If he were a player that were the age of Francisco Lindor, I'd give him a 10-plus year contract. He is the most perfect player that the Yankees have had in years. The Yankees cannot let him go. If they let him go, it's going to be a huge mistake.
Well, Dan, let's move on here to the Mets offer, because I'm ready to rip this one to shreds right here.
This is, you always have MLB Network come out with these scenarios. They love to speculate. They absolutely love to. But this one, I don't even know where the speculation is, because from the Mets' perspective, there should be 3 untouchables on your team right now that you cannot trade. Maybe 4. 3. Jacob deGrom, obviously you don't trade him. In my opinion, Pete Alonso, he's going to be the face of this team in years to come. And Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil has been our best hitter for the past 4 years. Like, this guy, absolutely you cannot trade him. And them throwing them in the deal. Here's the deal here for you guys. The Mets get Francisco Lindor and Austin Hedges. Who Austin Hedges, my God, the guy's bat over 200, I think, like once in his career. He is not the answer to the Mets' catching problems, which they have a big hole at catcher to fill, and it cannot be filled by Austin Hedges. Let me get that out there. For Andres Jimenez, who has been our number one overall prospect the last couple of years, and he's always been in that minor league system. Don't know if he's going to break through or not. Finally gets the MLB and had some good at-bats. Played pretty decent last year for us. Not that he's a starter by any means right now on this team, but he did play pretty well. Then Jeff McNeil, who, my God, I don't know why they throw him in. Pete Crow Armstrong, I can't see. This is the fourth guy I think the Mets Untouchables is. Because as a Mets fan, as being part of that organization right now, how can you trade your first overall or first round draft pick after you trade away, what's his face? Jared Kalelnik.
You can't trade Pete Crow Armstrong. That is insane to me that he's even being mentioned in this.
Not for a rental. You can't. Not for a rental.
No.
I think look, it's the New York Mets, and you have ownership at with Steve Cohen. I think if Lindor is available and if Lindor is already on the team, they're going to bring him back. But that's the thing. You're not guaranteed. You're not guaranteed anything like that. So you could always just wait for him to be a free agent, and you don't have to move any of these pieces.
No, you look at the Dodgers and Mookie Betts last year, and people were saying, and any team was saying that, we'll just wait till he's a free agent. They're not going to sign him in a COVID-19 year. What happens? They sign him to a 10-year contract. If you want somebody that badly, you go and get him. You get him in the door so you can get a contract extension out while he's on your roster. You don't wait and hope he hits the market. With a guy like Francisco Lindor, if there's a trade that they're willing to take value-wise, you trade for him, and then you give him that 8-9 year deal.
Yeah, if I'm the Mets, yes, I'm 100% trying to trade for him because you could do the sign and trade or let him play out that final year and sign him because obviously Francisco Lindor, a top 10 player in baseball, other than DeGrom, what position player have the Mets had? I mean, David Wright for some years, but my God, they need a guy that's going to be a perennial all-star on their team hitting because the Mets haven't had that in so long. So point is, obviously they have to do this trade. Like it should be a no-brainer for them. But the components of it, you go to the Indians, you say, hey, look, who do you like better? Do you like Jimenez or do you like Rosario better? That's where your starting piece. You throw in the shortstop. Then you say, all right, Dom Smith, I would try to keep Dom Smith if I'm the Mets. But if that's what it takes to get Francisco Lindor, then obviously you got to throw him in there. And then I say a couple prospects that aren't high-level prospects. But look, the trade, like the Lindor cannot get this much attention by all these teams for so much value because he only has that year on his contract. Mm-hmm. So I think the value for this trade can't be that extra, like the Jeff McNeils of the world. No way. The Indians have to realize, and they probably do. I would hope so. I guess MLB Network doesn't know, but Jeff McNeil cannot be in that deal. It has to be these guys like Dom Smith. I would love them to keep him, but if that means to get me Francisco Lindor, then by all means, I'm sorry, Dom Smith, but we got to part with you.
And the Mets, if they do get Lindor, they're going to have that's their shortstop for the next 10 years there. So you can get rid of Rosario. You can get rid of Jimenez. You can get rid of Murciano or somebody from the AAA. When Murciano, he could be the number one prospect next year. But Pete Crow Armstrong, this guy was number one pick of the Mets last year. And Scouts already said if he was in the MLB right now, he would be one of the best defensive center fielders in the entire league right now. If he figures out how to hit, if he can hit for power, he could be a possible five-tool player, this guy. He's not going to be like Kelenic was. Imagine an outfield if we have both of them. But Pete Crow Armstrong, he could be a very serviceable player when he comes up in 2023 or 2024. But I'm not giving up on that guy, especially when you just gave up on your center fielder of the future, who could have been up this year. That's a whole nother conversation. But the Mets also have a hole with Robbins and Cano. So a lot of them are blocked. You got to get rid of Jimenez or Rosario. There's just not enough room for both of those guys unless you move one to the outfield, probably Rosario. And you can turn one of those guys into a superstar right now. You got to do it. And if it only takes – it's not going to take what the MLB Network is predicting to take because that's the overpay of the century. I don't care how good Lindor is. The only person I think I would give that haul for is Mike Trout. That's about it. But after that, I just can't see this trade getting done with that pieces. But I do think the Mets have a very good shot to get Lindor. I think they have a lot of pieces, and they have a lot of replacement level pieces as well to fill the holes that they would be trading away.
it just feels to me that Ahmed Rosario's time is up in New York. You know, he was that number one prospect in baseball at one point. You know, he spent all this time coming up, finally comes up. He was known for his defense, how great he was as a defensive shortstop. Started to hit a little bit, but then his fielding just went down. I mean, his fielding last year, it was bad. Like, there's no way around it. He had a terrible season fielding. You had a guy like Lindor to shortstop. My God, the Mets defensively will just get automatically better just having Lindor in their lineup, because Rosario was a very defensive liability for the Mets last year. And it just seems, I mean, you saw, I don't know if you guys saw on his Instagram Live or whatever, I mean, he was talking Spanish to some guy, but you just kept hearing Cleveland, Cleveland. Maybe that's a good sign for us. Maybe a bad sign for Ahmed. I have no idea.
He also deleted all his Mets stuff on his Instagram.
Oh, yeah, that too. Yep.
Brand new guy. So, you know, I liked Ahmed, but I won't be ashamed to see him in Cleveland if we can get Lindor back for him.
Hey, Steve, one last thing, right? Obviously, I would love to have Lindor and DJ LeMahieu. It's not impossible, but it's not something that I do see the Yankees doing. Lindor, I would just love him. I would just love him. I wish to God that he could be a Yankee. But, you know, like I said, and like I keep saying, DJ LeMahieu is the number one priority this offseason.
Let's go with the NFL here. Big news in the NFL. Led our show earlier this summer, DeAndre Baker. So that situation in South Florida is crazy in itself. But the guy, he's a free man. We'll never know what happened at that barbecue. But he's a free man. Something happened. Somebody's not saying something, but he's free. He's free to sign anywhere. He has officially apologized to the New York Giants, and he said that he would love to come back, and that's the team he wants to go back to. Giants reportedly don't want anything to do with him, but you know Joe Judge. He could always take him on. It may be coach speak. Who knows? So tell me, is there a possible reunion in the cards for DeAndre Baker and the New York Giants?
I think if he signs with a team mid-season right now, it would only be a short-term thing. So I think this offseason, once this whole case of DeAndre Baker kind of cools down a little bit, I think there's a possibility they return to the Giants. I'm sure he has a bunch of friends on the team, people he knows and he's comfortable with on the team. So I get why he'd have interest in going back. You can't really fault the Giants for what they did at the time by cutting him. It was a really bad look, and it was really bad for DeAndre Baker. So I get why they cut him. So there shouldn't be any bad blood on his part. So if Dave Gettleman and Joe Judge can wisen up a little bit, you would think they would want to resign the guy that they've spent a first-round draft pick on just to get a little bit more return on investment of what they gave up to get this guy. They'd save money, honestly. If they cut him, they bring him back on a cheaper deal. It could end up working for the Giants, but the way the Giants have sounded, I don't think that's going to happen.
Thing about DeAndre Baker in the situation here is the Giants do care a lot about culture, and they do care a lot about their look in the public image. And this was a terrible look for DeAndre Baker. But if I'm DeAndre Baker, you got to imagine the entire time he is pleading his innocence. I didn't do it. Do not cut me. I am innocent. The Giants looked the other way, and they said, look, man, we can't have this. They cut him. They gave up on him. In your mind, if you're DeAndre Baker, why would you want to go back to the New York Giants? Why would you want to go back to the team that said, I think you're guilty. We can't have this on our team? He is apparently visiting the Kansas City Chiefs today. It could all work out very, very swimmingly for DeAndre Baker if he goes and he's the CB2 for the Chiefs, maybe even the CB1 eventually. So DeAndre Baker, would I like to see him back on the Giants if, of course, the situation's fishy. You never know what happened in this situation. Yeah. But if he can come back to the Giants, we can get him back for cheap. Of course, it looks Dave Gettleman looks smart. And if Baker can come back and play the way he played in the second half of the season last year, not the first half, because he actually played very well man-to-man, which is what the Giants need. I would love to see Baker back in blue. I'll be shocked, absolutely shocked if he comes back.
Yeah, like the thing with these type of guys that have the legal issue problems, you know, you could sign DeAndre Baker, and then another piece of information comes out and it condones him. Like you look at Antonio Brown, you know, he signs with the Buccaneers, all looks going very well, plays one game, and he's breaking surveillance cameras or whatever the hell it was.
Throwing bites at people.
Yeah. So as a Giants organization, I think you just have to move past this, say, yeah, we lost that first-round pick on a guy that, you know, we maybe screwed up on. Maybe he was innocent. But do you want to go with this headache again? The Giants are, you know, they've won 2 games in a row. They have aspirations of making the playoffs, now real aspirations with this terrible division. I don't think any more headaches or any more scrutiny onto Joe Judge's team, Jesus, could make like that. That shouldn't be a thought in their head. They're rolling right now. They got to just focus on the end of their season.
Let's get to the end of the season. Week 11, let's predict some of these games. Cardinals, Seahawks. Cardinals coming off that big Hail Mary win. The Hail Murray. They're 3-point underdogs going to Seattle, who's in a little bit of a skid here. Who's winning this battle for NFC West first place?
I know I said the same argument last week, but the Cardinals are one of those teams where just when you think that they're willing to contend with these teams in the NFC, and I think they're in first place in the NFC West right now, or they're right there.
By virtue of tiebreakers.
They show real promise that they can compete with the big boys. They lay an egg in a big game, and they take 2 steps forward and then 1 step back. So I think the Seahawks losing 2 in a row, I don't see them losing 3 in a row. Seahawks are at home this time, not in Arizona. I think Russell Wilson needs this game, and his last 3 games have not been good for Russell Wilson. So he was the lead front runner, and the player that he's facing this week is now the person who leapfrogged him in the MVP race in Kyler Murray. So I think Russell Wilson really needs this win. I think they'll be more motivated. And I think if Chris Carson gets back, that offense is a lot better. Shout out Jamal Adams for making that defense worse. Despite Jamal Adams, I do think the Seahawks win this game, though.
Yeah, you look at the Seahawks, you take off Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, you start week 1. God forbid he doesn't play for the year. With this current roster of the Seahawks, do you think they win more than 3 games without Russell Wilson?
Well,
absolutely not.
If there's Dwayne Haskins there, probably not.
I mean, you put in any, backup quarterback or fringe QB1 onto this team, I still can't see them winning more than 3 games. Russell Wilson has carried this franchise so much this year. What aspect of football are the Seahawks good at? Other than Russell Wilson, their defense is terrible. The run game, if they have a healthy running back, has not been working out very well. Their special teams is bad. There's nothing good about this team right now that I feel confident in picking them. Going against that, I'm going to pick them for all the wrong reasons here. I think that, like Andrew said, the Cardinals, they are a great young team, and I think they're going to lose because, the Hail Mary was such a high moment. I think they're going to be brought down going to Seattle because I think Russell Wilson needs to really have a great game. I picked them last week like a fool. Seahawks, don't make me a fool again.
This is tough because I feel like every week I go against Kyler Murray, and every week I keep choosing Russell Wilson, and I keep choosing the Seattle Seahawks because I back them up. But you know what? I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals here. I think that they are going to continue this hot run. They are going to kind of carry over that momentum from that crazy, crazy catch to end that game. And I think they're going to end up beating the Seahawks. Look, what can I say? Kyler Murray, he was made to play football. Maybe he was never made to play in the MLB. So, you know what? He's doing his thing, and he deserves it. Just I hope he continues to prove me wrong.
I saw the cracks in the Seahawks last week. I was the one to pick the Rams. Made me look kind of smart with that pick. But the Seahawks, they need Chris Carson back. And it is apparently absolutely positive that he's going to be able to play this week. Yeah. So I think that's big that he comes back. Before the season, you told me Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are going to sweep the Seahawks. I would have said you're crazy. I still think it's kind of crazy. I don't think they're going to sweep them. I think the Seahawks, they're not going to – good teams don't lose 3 games in a row like this. I think they finally get right. They win this game because the short week, they forget about their game against the Rams. They come back, they get healthier, and they beat the Cardinals. Because I think a big reason that they lost that Rams game, Jalen Ramsey absolutely shut down DK Metcalf. It was one of the best performances by a defensive back I saw all year. A motivated Jalen Ramsey is impressive and the best cornerback in the league. Hasn't been motivated that much recently. Was motivated to show DK Metcalf that he can shut him down. The Cardinals don't have anybody. I love Patrick Peterson. They don't have anybody that can shut down DK Metcalf like that. I think he gets back. He is a big game. might be a shootout because that Seahawks defense is so terrible, but I do think the Seahawks win this game on Thursday night, and which should be one of the better Thursday night football games of the entire season. Let's go these 1 o'clock games here. Tough to find one of these good ones, but this one looks like it should be pretty good. We got the Titans at the Ravens. The Ravens coming off a loss to the Patriots. Ravens are 6.5-point favorites. Who you got in this one?
This is a tough game to pick. Both teams look pretty miserable right now. You look at the beginning of the year, and Tennessee looks like one of the best teams in football. The Baltimore Ravens, you look at last year, and they were arguably the best team in football. Both lately just have not looked right. They're both such talented rosters, such explosive offenses that can really drop 40 points on any given Sunday, but they just haven't been right lately. Lamar Jackson cannot throw outside the numbers, and I think defenses finally know that, and they can stop that running game and force him to throw the ball, and that's been really, really brutal for Lamar Jackson. So unless he figures that out, give me Tennessee to win this game and ride Derrick Henry. I know he didn't have the greatest game last week because the Colts kind of shut him down, but you look at what Damian Harris did to the Ravens' run defense last week, and I think you look at that defense, and then you put Derrick Henry in that spot, and he's going to run right over them. So I think Tennessee wins this game.
Yeah, both teams have just been trending in a terrible direction. I think whoever loses this game might miss out on the playoffs, to be honest, because there's a lot of teams competing in the AFC that could leapfrog. I mean, the loser's going to go to here 6-4, and what is there to be happy about with your team? So when you look at this game, I think the spread is way too big for the Ravens. I don't think they've really earned that these last few weeks. Tennessee, granted, not a great team, but Andrew's point, I think Derrick Henry could really run the ball very well and effectively against the Ravens defense, who, they just haven't been playing well either. Other than I know Lamar's had some woes, but the defense isn't really holding up very well either. I'm going to take Tennessee here as well to win. I'm definitely going to take the points. I'm more confident with the points, obviously, but I'll take them to win.
I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens here. Look, Baltimore Ravens, they might have probably not have been as good as they were last year, and Lamar Jackson is not living up to what everyone thought he was going to live up this season, coming off that amazing 2019 campaign. But I think they're going to have a big comeback game here, and it doesn't matter about Derrick Henry. It doesn't matter about who the Tennessee Titans have going for them. I am going to choose the Baltimore Ravens this week.
First off, the 6.5-point spread, like you said, Dan, that's disrespectful. Yeah. I just don't understand how you can give that many points to a Ravens team who has not looked good. Even when they looked good last year, 14 wins, MVP, Lamar Jackson, next big thing in the NFL. Guess what? The Titans came into Baltimore. Titans stopped them in the playoffs. One of the best upsets I've seen in the playoffs in a long time. Lamar Jackson isn't playing well this year. The Ravens don't look like that 14-win team from last year. Titans have an extra 3 days to prepare for this game. Give me the Titans to win this game. I think everything looks like it's going to be in their favor. The Ravens, they need a couple get-right games. They don't look right. They need get-right games right now. They're not playing a team they can get right against. This is the worst possible matchup for the Baltimore Ravens at this time in their schedule. And after this game, we will see if the Ravens, what they're made of, what Lamar Jackson is made of, because they're either going to go on a downward spiral and miss the playoffs or sneak on in there. Who would have said that about a 6-1 team 2 weeks ago? Give me the Titans to win this game. Definitely cover that spread. I think that's the best bet of the week right there. Next game here on the schedule. Andrew, let's go to your New York Jets. We got to predict this game because we got a Jets fan on the podcast versus the 2-win LA Chargers. Maybe the best chance the Jets have for a win. Andrew, do the Jets, can they stave off 0-16? Can they get a win?
What's the line on this game?
On this game, 8.5-point favorites are the Chargers.
8.5. So this is a really weird game. On paper, you see the 2-win Chargers, and you think, okay, if the Jets aren't going to go 0-16, the way they looked against the Patriots, who just beat Baltimore, so they're not that big of a slouch. They were competitive against the Patriots, arguably should have won that game. Their offense finally got all three wide receivers in Jamison Crowder, Denzel Mims, and Brashad Perriman on the field at the same time, and they looked kind of competent. Hate to say it, but they look kind of competent with Joe Flacco. So who knows if that carries over to next week. I can't pick the Jets to win this game. Even if the Chargers defense is not what we thought it would be this year, that defense has been very, very leaky as of late. The way Justin Herbert's throwing the ball and putting on a Rookie of the Year showing, I don't think the Jets have a chance to stop that. I know the Jets just cut Pierre Desir, so their defense can only get better now. So that has some dangerous potential for that Jets defense to win this game, but I can't pick it. I think the Chargers offense will be too much to handle.
Yeah, this line does look a little big to me. The Chargers have not been playing very great, especially last week when they played a very good Dolphins team that has surprised everyone. Justin Herbert's going to realize the difference between the Miami Dolphins defense and the Jets defense this week. He's going to have a very good performance this week. Like that line is confusing to me. I feel like it should be a little less, maybe like 6.5. But that doesn't mean I'm going to pick it. I think Vegas knows something I don't, and I would go with the Chargers minus 8.5 here.
I'm probably going to have to agree here with Dan. I'm going to have to go with the Chargers.
A lot of people say the Chargers are a good team because they lose these one-score games, and just like the Chiefs, just like the Steelers, they're in these games to the end. Chargers not a good team. You have all been fooled by Justin Herbert playing well, but Justin Herbert, I have seen him do some great things. I can't talk. I have also seen him do some terrible things, make some very big rookie mistakes. You have a veteran defensive coordinator in there, and Greg Williams. God, I don't want to do it, but I got to do it. Somebody's got to do it. New York Jets. Sorry, D-Rod, they're going to beat the Chargers this week.
Oof.
Give me them. Joe Flacco played better than Sam Darnold did all year in his last game against the Patriots. Joe Flacco, Super Bowl champion quarterback, he's not going to go out on his back not winning a game. He's going to win one of these starts. This is the best chance. I do think the Jets, the extra week will help them. They get healthy because that's been one of their biggest problems. They haven't been healthy. Get Mount Becton back. Get these wide receivers back. Establish a damn run game with LaMichael Pirine. Get Frank Gore off the team. I don't care. Why is he getting carries? LaMichael Pirine, let him carry the load. Give me the Jets. I'm going to regret it. I know Sunday morning when I go and make that graphic, I'm going to be like, what the hell was I thinking? I'm going with them. Give me the Jets.
That's got to be your least confident pick you've ever made in your entire
easily.
life.
That's probably the one that'll hit though. So Andrew, I'm going with the Jets. That may be the 1-15 right there. Next game we have here, Packers at the Colts. A surprisingly good matchup here. 7-2, 6-3, and the Colts are favorites by 2.5 points. Who you got in this one?
I think this line is disrespectful to the Packers. I know the Packers did not look great. The Packers almost probably should have lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. But every week, the Colts keep proving me wrong. I just don't see it with this team. They're not a good football team. They're relying on Nyheim Hines. Jonathan Taylor has been a bust of a rookie so far. Phillip Rivers has been okay. Their defense has been phenomenal, which is helping them out. But I think the Packers offense, which didn't look good against Jacksonville, so I don't have a lot to defend this pick. I think the Packers win this game. I think they're disrespected by being an underdog with Aaron Rodgers. I think they get a little bit right here.
Yeah, this is another week for Aaron Jones to get more healthy and make a great impact. And like Andrew said, the Colts offense is not a good offense. Their defense, however, has played well, but some of the teams they've beaten over this course of winning was the Jets, the Bears. They lost to the Browns, beat the Bengals, the Lions, and the Titans. Those aren't really good offenses right now. So that defense has gotten all this praise because they haven't really been playing anyone. Aaron Rodgers needs to play a lot better because you saw them get blown out by the Vikings. Well, not blown out. Dalvin Cook blew them out. And then you have the Jaguars where they just looked terrible against them. The Jaguars looked like a pretty good team against them. Granted, they did win that game. The Packers are going to win by more than 3. My God, that line should be more of a pick-em to me. The Colts may be one of the most overrated teams in the NFL, but maybe they proved me wrong. I'm definitely taking the Packers here.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking the Packers here. Look, I've always been a giant fan of Aaron Rodgers. The Colts, they have surprised me this season, but I'm going to have to stick with my man down in Cheddarland, Aaron Rodgers.
Up in Cheddarland.
Up in Cheddarland. Once upon a time, this would have been one of the best Super Bowl matchups of all time. Brett Favre versus Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers versus Peyton Manning. But now we just get Aaron Rodgers, older than he ever was versus Phillip Rivers. And that is just disappointing in itself. And I think that the Packers are going to go in and beat the Colts in this one. I'm very surprised the Colts are favored in this one. Give me them to lose this week. Dan, is anybody here picking the Cowboys? Do we really got to pick the Vikings-Cowboys game?
We got to talk about it.
All right, you let us know why the Vikings are going to win this game.
The Vikings are definitely going to win this game, and I am sipping that purple Kool-Aid, chugging it, absolutely so happy that the Vikings beat the Bears last night. Surprised me. They could have lost if Nick Foles makes that throw to Anthony Miller, which was off the fingertips. I mean, that was a pretty good damn throw. Anthony Miller, not the tallest guy, so he couldn't really get to that ball. The Vikings have impressed me these last – I mean, they beat 3 division opponents in a row. They've gone from 1-5 to 4-5. This week, they have the Cowboys at home, which I'm pretty sure they're 8-point favorites or something around that area.
7.5.
7.5. There's no reason that the Vikings should lose to the Cowboys at home in a 4 o'clock game where Kirk Cousins, I mean, he got the monkey off his back to win it Monday night. Sunday against teams that are not good, especially against the Cowboys, the NFC East. Kirk Cousins is a very good quarterback against those type of teams. The Vikings should win big here. They should. My God, they should. I'm going to pick them to win big here. And they got the Jaguars coming up, and they got another team that's not very good. I forget who it is. So the Vikings have a chance to get to 7-5 after being 1-5. Maybe I'm sipping the Kool-Aid here, but they need to win this game so they can make a playoff push.
Dan, I tried telling you that the Vikings are going to win on Monday. I'm more confident than the resident Vikings fan on this show. So let it be known that I am Skull and not Dan. They're going to win again this week. They're going to get back to 500. Dalvin Cook is going to be a lot to handle. I know Dallas, with whoever the hell, Ben DiNucci, they were starting, or Garrett Gilbert, they were starting against Pittsburgh. They look pretty good. So it wouldn't shock me if this game's a little bit closer than people think, but I think there's no way that they can actually stop Dalvin Cook for a full 4 quarters. So give me the Vikings to win.
Yeah, I just think Kirk Cousins just has to do just enough, like he's been doing his whole career. Let Dalvin Cook handle the load. Cousins just threw it to Adam Thielen, and it worked. He worked last night. He finally beat the Bears, finally won that primetime game.
Finally.
So I think the sky is the limit now. So the playoffs for Kirk Cousins. Next game, Sunday Night Football, Chiefs, Raiders. The Raiders are the only team to hang a loss on the Chiefs this year. 8-1 versus the 6-3 Vegas Raiders. First time we get Sunday Night Football in Vegas. Chiefs are 7-point favorites. This could be a good one. Who you got here?
Probably.
Well, this is a very interesting game. Number one, I wish Vegas. I wish they were having fans in the seats for the Sunday's game, because if they were, I would definitely be in attendance there at that stadium. I'm excited to see what it looks like. So the Chiefs here, look, I've said this, the Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League. They have the greatest quarterback in the modern era as of right now. They aren't losing this game. It doesn't matter what happens. They are not losing this game.
Yeah, the Raiders are one of those teams, just like the Dolphins, that have shocked me this year. I am actually shocked that the Raiders are in this position of 6-3, commanding second place in that division, and could really make a playoff push. I mean, they're obviously in the playoffs as of right now, and could continue that. Like Steve said, the Chiefs did lose to the Raiders. I don't see that happen twice in a season. There's no way this Patrick Mahomes-led Kansas City Chiefs are going to lose to the Raiders twice in a row. That 7-point line, I think about taking it. If it was the 6.5, I would definitely take it. That little hook, I don't know. I do like the Chiefs to win here by 7. I'll take them by 7.
This is actually a tough game for me to pick. The only thing stopping me from picking the Raiders is there's no way Andy Reid and the Chiefs are getting swept by the Raiders, like Dan said. I think that the Raiders have a good formula to beat the Chiefs, and I don't think the Chiefs have looked that good lately. They lost to the Raiders earlier in the year. They almost lost to the Carolina Panthers at home, but coming off a bye week, I think they fixed some things up. I think they need to establish a run game. They can't run the ball for 40 yards a game and expect to win games and go far in the playoffs. It's just not going to work against these top teams. The Raiders aren't a top team, but if they face a really top contender like the Pittsburgh Steelers or someone else in the AFC, they're going to have to run the ball. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell on paper should be just enough, just be fine in an Andy Reid offense to run the ball 15, 20 times a game and actually establish a run game. But it hasn't been there this year. And Patrick Mahomes has been playing at an MVP level, so they haven't had to throw the ball. But this Kansas City offense is just missing that one little element. I will still pick them to win, but not very confident as I should be in the Chiefs. But give me them to win.
Listen, I was all ready to pick the Raiders, and I remembered Pablo is going to Las Vegas. Ain't no way the Raiders are winning that game with him in Vegas. The Chiefs are going to win that game. You better get a picture in front of that stadium, though.
I'm going to tell you what, I'm bringing my camera there, and I'm going to have a big photo shoot in Vegas. You're going to see plenty of photos,
Great.
and you're going to see my Instagram come to life. It's going to come back to life. I'm going to be back. Back.
Aren't we lucky? Final game here, Monday Night Football. LA Rams at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers 3-point favorites at home. Who you got?
I think I'll actually take the Buccaneers here. The Rams have been looking very, very solid as of late. That defense is one of the best defenses in football. So I do think they can get some pressure on Tom Brady and kind of knock him off his game, which is what they need to do if they want to win this game. I like what Tampa Bay is doing on offense. They put up 40-plus points last week against Carolina. So I think with the addition of Antonio Brown, they're finally gelling a little bit, using everyone from Mike Evans to Chris Godwin to Antonio Brown to Gronkowski to Ronald Jones running for almost 200 yards. I think that Bucs offense, if they play like that, they're borderline unstoppable the way they're clicking. So Tom Brady's playing really well. They got right against the Panthers, so I think they get back into that status as a top NFC contender.
Yeah, I mean, the Bucs played great on offense against the Panthers, but that is the Panthers, and this Rams defense, like you said, has been playing very well, and they just beat the Seahawks, which is a great confidence booster for them. I'm going to pick the Rams here. I think the Rams are actually finally getting over that Super Bowl loss and becoming a better team than they have been these past couple of years. This would be a huge win to go to Tampa and win. That line, I'll take that and give me the Rams.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Dan. The Rams, they have been looking very solid as of late. I'm tired of picking the Buccaneers, and I feel like there's always something about this team, whether they barely win or they get killed. This team, they have too much talent on paper to be as mediocre and as they are right now. So I'm going to be going with the Rams.
I think that this Rams team is better than the Rams team that went to the Super Bowl. That defense is going to carry them. They remind me a lot of that Denver Broncos team that made the Super Bowl with their offense, came back, stacked up that defense. Offense is still pretty serviceable, and they made the Super Bowl, beat Cam Newton in the Super Bowl. I think this Rams team can win a lot of games, especially a lot of games on the road with that defense and that run game. So give me the Rams to win this game. I think they beat the Buccaneers because I think the Buccaneers, I'm still not sold on the Buccaneers. So give me the Rams in this one. Let's go to our questions. Our first question comes from Twitter, actually, from the What Off-Season Sports podcast. They want to know if we trust Jameis Winston to carry the Saints while Drew Brees misses some time.
I'm actually a very big Jameis Winston fan, so I will say that he will be fine for New Orleans Saints in the meantime. Hopefully they get Drew Brees back within 4 or 5 weeks because they don't want Jameis Winston to play in a playoff game. They'll be fine in the regular season. They'll win enough games to get into the playoffs and arguably still compete for the division title. I think Jameis Winston will be good for New Orleans fantasy-wise. I think he's a lot willing to take risks compared to Drew Brees. He'll throw the ball a lot more downfield and push the ball downfield and get Mike Thomas involved in the game and get these other receivers involved in the game. So it's a little bit of an aspect that the Saints haven't had with Drew Brees since his arm strength is at an all-time low. But I do think that accuracy-wise and decision-making-wise, it's not the same.
Yeah, let me say this. This was the perfect time for Drew Brees to go down for Jameis Winston because you play the Falcons, the Broncos, the Falcons again, and the Eagles in the next 4 weeks where there's a possibility of Drew Brees missing those 4 weeks. This was the perfect time for him to come in, try to go 3-1 in those 4 games if Drew Brees is out the whole 4 weeks, and you get a contract. I mean, I feel like a lot of NFL teams will give him a shot if he's able to play pretty well in these next few weeks. just because of that schedule, I think it will work out for him. If it was against a harder schedule, the Saints haven't been looking like the Saints as of these last, 5 years. Just because of that schedule, I'm going to say, yes, it's going to work out.
To me, this is Jameis Winston's Teddy Bridgewater moment. This is it. He plays well enough, he gets a starting quarterback job next year, most likely. He doesn't, probably back on the Saints as a backup again. I think this is the perfect opportunity. Like you said, easy part of the schedule coming up. Don't want him playing in the playoffs, but I think we'll see more Taysom Hill to alleviate some of that pressure off Winston. I think he does play well with Sean Payton, and I think he kind of puts his name in the hat right there for the Saints quarterback job once Drew Brees is gone, which could be as early as next year. Next question here. Dan Rodriguez wants to know, as a Giants fan, hey, that's me. I'm a Giants fan. Would you take winning the division at 6-10, but that means Dave Gettleman gets extended? Now, that's a loaded question here, and I will take that. I will take that. I do think if you separate – now, I'm not a Dave Gettleman truther by any means, but if you separate his tenure into two separate areas, one where he was trying to win now and one where he was rebuilding, I think you would have a very different perception of Dave Gettleman's moves with the Giants. I do think he had a great offseason last offseason. One of the best off seasons in the entire league. Andrew Thomas looks fantastic. Xavier McKinney's coming back. He got the right head coach, got the right defensive coordinator. Blake Martinez and James Bradbury look like they're going to the Pro Bowl. Leonard Williams might join him there. He has as many pressures on the quarterback as Aaron Donald does this year. Defense looks fantastic. I think that this team is close to having a pretty dominant defense if they can get a little more talent in there. I think if the Giants even win 5 games and look competent, I think that Dave Gettleman, I think he's going to get another shot no matter what. So give me them winning the division too. If Gettleman's going to be there next year, I'll take the division if that's what it's going to be.
In any scenario where you say the Giants win the division, I mean, yes. You don't even have to name the part after it. You just take the division, yes.
Giants win the division and I die. That's the one thing I say, nah, I don't want that. But Dave Gettleman, I'll deal with him for another year, especially with how great of an offseason he had, if it means that they win the division. Next question here from PK Patel. Tough question for Pablo and Steve. Pablo, I'll let you take this one because I just answered that one. And he wants to know, is Kyler Murray the MVP frontrunner?
Whoa. You know what? I really don't know if he's the front runner, but I do think that he is among the top leading candidates. And after that just magnificent fourth quarter he had, on Sunday, I think that he probably – man, this is tough for me to say. It's really hard. I'm trying to word it without saying it. I think he probably is a front runner. I'm not sure if he is the front runner to win. But this kid, he's done his thing. In his second season in the league, he's been pretty incredible.
Yeah, like you said, a front runner, not the front runner. Patrick Mahomes still plays in the NFL, everybody. And next question here, Trevor Pucciarello. Interesting question here. He wants to know who will be the last teams to make the playoffs in the NFC and AFC. So the way I interpret this is kind of give me a fringe playoff team that you think will make it. That's kind of sneaking in there.
I honestly, like I said, I'm sipping the Kool-Aid, but 7-seed Minnesota Vikings. I mean, you look at the Bears right now. They're on that cusp too as well, and they are just looking awful. They started off 5-1, now they're 5-4, 5-4 now. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're going to fall. They fell right out of that spot. The Vikings are going to jump up there. And then AFC wise, I don't think the Titans the Titans are going to make it compared to the Ravens. The Ravens are going to fall out. So that leads another team. You guys could talk. I forget who's in that spot right there.
Maybe the AFC, I would look at a team like Cleveland or Tennessee as one of those teams, even Miami. So those are a lot of good teams in the AFC, right in the fringe. The AFC playoff picture, much more interesting than NFC.
The NFC is, loaded.
Yeah, I do think that the Vikings with that schedule is definitely going to be one to watch out for. In the NFC, I really don't even see any other teams that really pique my interest because I don't think that the Lions or the Bears are going to make it. So really, maybe if the 49ers can go on a little bit of a run, they could do it because they still have a good team. But that's really it. Unless NFC East, I'm not really looking at because that's a whole thing in its own. So
Yeah, a team in the AFC that people aren't mentioning that has at least a chance to make it. I don't know he'll like to hear this. The New England Patriots, the way they played against Baltimore, if they stick to that formula and they kind of run the ball some more, and their defense plays like it did against Baltimore, then they have a shot to at least make it as a 7th seed.
Yeah, the Dolphins were the team I was trying to think of. I don't think they're going to stay, 6. I think they're 6-3 right now. I don't think they're going to be, a 9-6 or 9-7 team. Sorry, they're going to be right on that fringe at the end of it all, and I think they can make that 7 seed.
final question of the show, Beef Allen. I know we did you wrong with the pick last night. Here we go. 2 questions. He says, "What is your lock of the week, and who is the Darkhorse Super Bowl team?"
Yeah, we didn't hear Danny D's lock of the week, and Beef, I can't be just throwing out every week a lock of the week. They have to come when they come. They have to present themselves to me. I can't just say, hey, this is a lock. I take a lot of pride in my locks. However, not a lock, but a great pick that we were discussing before, the Packers +3. That is I think that's the best bet of the week here.
You want a lock of the week, Beef? Fine. I'll give you a lock of the week. My lock of the week here, Browns beating the Eagles. Browns 3.5. Give me that line. Eagles stink. They stink. Doug Peterson, he might get fired at the end of the year. Give me the Browns and Kevin Stefanski to stay hot with that easy schedule. Darkhorse Super Bowl team, I'll answer that one too. I just said it. LA Rams, baby. I think that team can go far with that formula.
Yeah, I think if there's a sleeper Super Bowl team, I'll go to the AFC. I know they haven't been playing great lately, but give me the Tennessee Titans. I think they can channel a little bit of how they played in the first half of the season, first quarter of the season when they were still undefeated. Their defense has talent, so their defense has room to improve over the final few weeks of the season, and they have the perfect formula for playoff success, like we saw last year. I think their offense is even better. I think A.J. Brown is a superstar. I think Corey Davis is coming to his own as a number 2 receiver. So I think that offense, to go along with that running game, I think that they can really make some noise if they just get in.
Yeah, the Rams are definitely the pick as dark horse. But if somehow the Raiders are able to knock off the Chiefs here, which is unlikely, but if they were to, I mean, who's stopping them if they could beat the Chiefs twice in 1 year? I think that would be a dark horse as well.
That's our last question. That's all we got for episode 40 of the Before the Score podcast. We're officially over the hill. Check out our Instagram, Twitter at Before the Score. And look out because Pablo Hernandez is trying to remake Instagram this weekend. So be on the lookout for that. Before the Score, episode 40.